You know it's going to be a weird night when the most honest person in the room is the janitor. I'm Ethan Blake, and tonight we wade through another toxic stew of lies, spin, and emotional manipulation, served to us by the people who call that communication. I'll expose the contradictions, highlight the cringe, and roast the elite one bad quote at a time. Because satire isn't dead, it's just caffeinated. So, buckle in, tune up your sarcasm meter, and let's slap a fragile sticker on society. You're watching the last sane man laugh before he screams.
Interesting, they have this idea, the younger generation, maybe every generation does, that just because something is new makes it better. And that's not true. New is not synonymous with better.
But you're sounding like an old-fashioned conservative.
Okay.
And the left,
Yes.
decries you, and then the left likes you when you say something bad about Trump.
And this is one of our big problems, is that we're all in our bubbles. We are all in our media bubbles, and so many people just want to hear coming back to them what they already believe in an echo chamber. You mentioned Ronald Reagan. Famously, he used to have a drink at the end of the day, often with Tip O'Neill, who was the leader in the House and the Democrat. But they were just two Irish pals who could get together and have a scotch at the end of the day. And they knew they weren't going to get along on many issues, but they didn't hate each other. They could drink together. That is inconceivable today. Can you imagine Joe Biden having a drink with Mike Johnson?
Bill Maher just took a flamethrower to the internet, and the blowback wasn't aimed at Trump, but at his own side. After weeks of relentless outrage from progressives who lost their minds over Maher simply having dinner with Donald Trump, the real-time host finally clapped back, and let's just say, it wasn't exactly a group hug. In a searing monologue that felt more like a televised detonation, Maher torched the left for their hypocrisy, their safe space hysteria, and their self-righteous intolerance for dialogue. He didn't tiptoe, he bulldozed. He called out performative activism, virtue signaling cancel mobs, and the new progressive religion where dissent is heresy and nuance is betrayal. This wasn't just pushback, it was a reckoning. Maher made it clear, if you can't tolerate a conversation, maybe you're not the side of reason anymore. So yeah, the mic's on fire, and so is Twitter.
So I'm going to call it out wherever I see it. I mean, there are things that have to do with, gender and race and free speech and just ideas about, you can be healthy at any weight, and gender is always a social construct, and maybe we should give communism another try, and maybe we should get rid of capitalism and the border patrol, and let's tear down statues of Lincoln and get rid of the police. Just, no, it's not that I've gotten old, it's that your ideas are stupid, okay?
Common sense is still common sense.
Yes, common sense is common sense, and I'm going to call it out wherever it is on the spectrum.
Maher's opening salvo landed like a sledgehammer, right on the heads of far-left purists, still clutching their pearls over his dinner with Donald Trump. But instead of offering the expected groveling apology or mumbling some woke-friendly excuse, Maher came out swinging with cold, unapologetic reality. He made it clear, it's not him who's lost the plot, it's them. Their politics, their outrage, their obsessive need for purity. It's drifted so far from common sense, it's practically left Earth's orbit. He torched the cancel culture mob for its moral authoritarianism. He ripped into the hive mind mentality where dissent is treason and dialogue is betrayal. Maher didn't flinch, he flamed. And the self-appointed thought police of the progressive left, they didn't get the contrition they were demanding. They got scorched. The left wanted a reassuring nod that Maher still belonged to the club. Instead, he handed them a mirror. It was brutal, it was surgical, and it was long overdue. Because someone had to say it, when your movement fears conversation more than corruption, maybe you're not the heroes anymore.
Well, I think the basis of it is we started to hate each other. I mean, you mentioned Ronald Reagan. Famously, he used to have a drink at the end of the day, often with Tip O'Neill, who was the leader in the House and the Democrat. But they were just two Irish pals who could get together and have a scotch at the end of the day. And they knew they weren't going to get along on many issues, but they didn't hate each other. They could drink together. That is inconceivable today. Can you imagine Joe Biden having a drink with Mike Johnson? It just would never happen. When you hate people, you don't listen to them. So it doesn't matter how reasonable they might be.
Yeah, I've got to say, I'm with Maher on this one. Look, polarization is a two-way street, but let's be real. The version brewing on the far left, it's become a full-blown, exhausting moral Olympics. We're not just talking political disagreements, we're talking ideological purity tests that make the Spanish Inquisition look chill. Remember when some progressive women proudly declared they wouldn't date men who voted for Trump? Not debate them, not challenge them, flat out refuse to date them. That's not resistance. That's romantic extremism. And just a few weeks ago, we saw that viral meltdown where a bride-to-be canceled her own wedding because her fiancé didn't have a loud enough opinion on LGBTQ rights and Black Lives Matter. He didn't oppose them. He just wasn't performative enough. And that alone made him a problem. This isn't activism anymore. It's social media virtue cosplay, where nuance goes to die and silence is violence unless it's your echo chamber doing the talking. Maher's not excusing Trump. He's just pointing out the obvious. When your movement starts eating its own over-imagined sins, maybe the problem isn't who you're fighting, it's who you've become.
They're wrong. I mean, they're wrong, and the kids are crazy. It's interesting. They have this idea, the younger generation, maybe every generation does, that just because something is new makes it better. And that's not true. New is not synonymous with better.
But you're sounding like an old-fashioned conservative.
Okay. I heard a couple of people say, or maybe they wrote it online, that, well, I'm a hypocrite because you were for the demonstrators in 1968 or whatever it was when they were demonstrating against the Vietnam War. Yeah, that was very different. First of all, the students weren't against their own. These students were threatening other students. That didn't happen in the Vietnam War. And being against the Vietnam War made sense. It was a war that we probably should not have been in.
But let me ask you,
this is demonstrating and protesting for a terrorist group. I mean, Hamas is...
Well, to be fair, a lot of students are doing that. There are a lot of outside, people have mixed together.
Comparing the Vietnam War to what's unfolding in Palestine right now, that's not just apples to oranges. It's apples to hand grenades, and the logic doesn't hold for a single second. It's wild how many people either can't or won't see the difference. The Vietnam War was an ill-conceived, unnecessary mess of American interventionism. So when Maher supported the anti-war demonstrators back then, it made sense. It was a principled stand against pointless bloodshed led by our own government. But now, we're talking about Hamas, a terrorist organization that doesn't just fight, it targets civilians, uses human shields, and parades brutality like a badge of honor. And somehow, people expected Maher to line up and clap for that because he doesn't cozy up to blood-soaked extremists. They brand him a hypocrite. Please. That's not activism. That's blind allegiance dressed up as outrage. Maher didn't flip. The moral compass of some so-called progressives did. And they're furious he won't follow them off the cliff.
Well, I've been moaning and railing about that on my show because I tore Merrick Garland a new one a couple of weeks ago because I think the Democrats blew it, as they always do with this kind of stuff, because they've had 4 years. What was all the delay about? Why are we coming to the end? Of course they're going to try to run out the clock, and they did. And so if this is the only one, the one they probably shouldn't have brought anyway, or if they did, it was really a election law violation trial that should have been tried nationally on a federal level, and it wound up to be falsifying business records on the state level. So it's already in the wrong court. And why didn't Garland bring this earlier federally? Or why aren't any of these being wrapped up in 4 years? It's just so ridiculous.
As expected, Bill Maher came out swinging, and this time he didn't bring a scalpel, he brought a blowtorch. The Democratic Party torched. Their failures, their cowardice, their refusal to look in the mirror during the Biden presidency, he ripped them to shreds. For months, Democrats have been pointing fingers at Maher, scapegoating him for their electoral stumbles. Why? Because he had the audacity to speak the truth. Because he refused to chant the party's talking points like a trained parrot. They say his criticism of the far left alienated the base and fractured unity. Maher's response? Not a chance. It wasn't his fault voters fled, it was the party's own arrogant, tone-deaf platform and an addiction to ideological purity. Maher didn't cost them votes. Their own refusal to listen to Middle America did. He's not the problem, he's the mirror, and they hate him for showing them what they really look like. Rather than self-reflect, they do what weak parties always do when cornered: shoot the messenger. But when the left turns its fire inward, the only ones celebrating are the extremists they claim to fight. Even Larry David took a shot at Maher over the Trump dinner, and Maher, he didn't flinch. He's not here for applause. He's here to expose the rot.
Nobody has been harder about and more prescient, I must say, about Donald Trump than me. I don't need to be lectured on who Donald Trump is. Just to use the Hitler thing, first of all, I just think it's kind of insulting to 6 million dead Jews. You know, like that should kind of be in its own place in history. And, you know, I know people can say, well, we're just comparing it in this way. Well, it's an argument you kind of lost just to start it.
Absolutely. Comparing anyone to Hitler isn't just intellectually bankrupt, it's a grotesque insult to history. Hitler isn't some measuring stick for political rage. He's the embodiment of genocidal evil. And using his name to score political points doesn't just miss the mark, it desecrates the memory of millions who suffered under his regime. Bill Maher wasn't about to let that slide. When Larry David lobbed that absurd comparison his way, Maher didn't just push back. He called it out for what it was: lazy, hyper-emotional nonsense masquerading as moral clarity. In Maher's view, if David had a real argument, he should have made one. But instead, we got the rhetorical equivalent of shouting fire in a crowded theater. This wasn't some brave stand against injustice. It was character assassination dressed up in virtue. Maher didn't flinch. Because at a time when outrage is currency, he refuses to let historical ignorance go unchallenged.
This is why, I really feel like one of the themes of the book is, and in my show all the time, I'm just saying, you can hate Trump, you can't hate everybody who likes him. It's half the country, okay? And I mean, look, no one was harder on Trump or will be harder on Trump, and I think I was out front on predicting he was not going to leave office. But you can't change people's minds like that. Sometimes they just like a guy, and I also concede that there are so much goofiness also on the left that I do understand why people go, yeah, Trump is crazy and we don't really like him, but you know what? What you're selling scares me even more.
It's honestly both tragic and infuriating that the left still can't see the train wreck barreling toward them, or worse, refuses to admit they're driving it. Bill Maher has long called himself a normie, a guy rooted in the middle, grounded in common sense. Once a proud liberal, Maher now looks around and barely recognizes the political team he used to cheer for. According to him, he hasn't changed. The left has. And while he claims to be drifting toward the center, let's not kid ourselves. Plenty of folks see him inching straight toward the right. Let's not forget, Maher was once the left's most unrelenting flamethrower against conservatives. Brutal, biting, unapologetic. But lately, his jabs at the right feel more like polite taps, while his rage is squarely aimed leftward. His monologues now scorch progressives, torching the far left with a glee he used to reserve for evangelical Republicans. Some chalk this up to tough love, a liberal trying to rescue his side from self-destruction. But others, and I'm one of them, see the writing on the wall. Maher's ideological GPS is rerouting. He's not becoming a conservative out of loyalty, he's being pushed there. One purity test and identity crusade at a time. Because the truth is, the left didn't just lose Maher, they exiled him.
And the left, decries you, and then the left likes you when you say something bad about Trump.
And this is one of our big problems, is that we're all in our bubbles. We are all in our media bubbles, and so many people just want to hear coming back to them what they already believe in an echo chamber.
Most America is in the center, but you don't see that in the media.
You won't find this kind of truth bomb exploding on most mainstream media networks, and that's by design. The sad reality, the media has become a glorified cheering squad, with many major outlets trading journalistic integrity for political loyalty. Instead of reporting with fairness or nuance, they've picked a side, and they're sticking to it like duct tape on a leaky pipe. Cue the non-stop applause for Democrats and the theatrical outrage for anything remotely conservative. Objectivity buried under a mountain of smug editorializing. That's why jaws hit the floor when Anderson Cooper, yes, that Anderson Cooper, finally addressed the elephant in the newsroom. And let's not sugarcoat it. CNN has been leading the charge in turning journalism into partisan theater. Since Donald Trump made his golden escalator debut in 2015, CNN hasn't just covered him. They've declared war. They ditched the facts in favor of feelings, replacing headlines with hashtags and anchoring in outrage rather than inquiry. Even Bill Maher, who's no MAGA apologist, had to drag them for it on his show. Because when CNN becomes indistinguishable from a Democratic press release, it's not journalism. It's propaganda with a press pass.
We're on Stephen Colbert's show, and he said something like, you guys at CNN just report the news straight. And the crowd burst into laughter. Look, I'm on CNN now. I guess we're on it right now. I mean, they show this show the next night. I don't know how we get away with it with all the but they do.
If Anderson Cooper is finally waking up and calling out the media machine, then bravo. But let's be clear, this reckoning is long overdue. For years, networks like CNN and MSNBC didn't just cover Donald Trump. They declared war. Not after he signed his first executive order, not after his inauguration, before day one. They hated him before he even swore the oath. And now, that hatred has only metastasized. What we've seen isn't journalism. It's a narrative operation. Every headline is slanted. Every chyron is a battleground. Every panel, a coordinated chorus of outrage. And while viewers are led to believe they're watching objective reporting, what they're really consuming is a 24/7 emotional manipulation campaign. Context is discarded. Facts are bent until they scream. And the entire production runs on fear, loathing, and buzzwords. So when Cooper breaks ranks just slightly, it's not courage, it's convenient. Because this monster, CNN helped build it. They fed it, nurtured it, and rode its outrage all the way to record-breaking ratings. And then there's Bill Maher, the guy who used to get a standing ovation from the left every time he dropped a truth bomb, until his truth started targeting them. He hasn't changed, they have. Maher is still standing in the middle while the left sprints toward the ideological cliff. He calls out hypocrisy, even if it comes wrapped in a blue ribbon. And that's why they hate him now. Because in an age where mob outrage rules the narrative, someone who refuses to bow becomes dangerous. Maher's honesty may not win him any new fans at MSNBC, but it earns him something far rarer in today's political circus: credibility. Truth doesn't come with a party label, it comes with guts. And right now, we need a whole lot more of that. Smash that like button, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Stay loud, stay smart, and stay unfiltered.